Mr. Rye, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing the school district of the Chathams?
Well, I think there are several challenges facing the school system. They include their rising healthcare costs, fluctuating enrollments, not very good guidance from the candidates running for the state office on how they would treat school funding, inconsistency across the board in politics regarding school funding, and particularly at the federal level, with comprehensive tax reform being discussed, how that would affect the taxpayers of the district not being able to write off their state and local taxes. So the school system has to figure out a way to obviously increase or maintain the academic standards that we have while being fiscally responsible to the voters at the same time.
Good. Go ahead.
So again, the question is challenges to the school districts of the Chathams.
Yes.
If you don't mind, I'm going to answer that in two parts. So we have our, immediate challenges the next 1, 2, 3 years. So, but on the board we also talk about 5, 10, 20 years out. So the immediate challenges are, as Mr. Ryan alluded to, although he said fluctuating enrollment, I only see it fluctuating one way. It's been going up, and all the trade magazines say, how do you deal with your declining enrollment? I'm like, gosh, I wish we had that problem. So we have increased enrollment year over year over year, probably, it's probably increased about 40% in the last 20 years. Which is great, you're almost a victim of your own success, but the challenge that is keeping up a high-performing district with the limited resources. So that's our initial goal. How do we deal with that? How do we stay a rock star district with limited funding? And the long term I see is quite frankly teacher shortages. How are we going to handle the teacher shortages 10, 20 years out? The schools are simply not graduating as many teachers, so we're thinking now, how are we going to meet that challenge? The University of Delaware graduated 1 foreign language teacher last year. 1. So as the teachers, thank you. 1. Look it up, Libby. 1. Where's this? Delaware.
To Ms. Chambers.
Of course, there are many, many things that our school district has to face, and of course, we always want to keep the safety and security of our children in mind. The school board has already addressed many things like the vaping policy and the new installation of security cameras. But one of the things that I think we really need to focus on is what's going on in both towns. The Chathams is a unique school district. We have 2 towns, yet 1 school district. So I think the school board needs to really pay attention to what's going on in the redevelopment in both towns. I think we need to work very closely with both towns to make sure that what they choose to do and how it affects our school district. We need to prepare for any influx of students and families, and we need to make sure that we are working alongside both the township committee and the borough committees to make sure that whatever the finalized plans are, the Board of Education is right there with them, working towards a common goal so that we can prepare for any influx and any changes that occur in our towns. And thank you very much.
Mr. Epstein.
Yeah, sure. I agree with Jill, actually. One of the biggest problems that we have is this thing.
I think it's on, Ron.
I'll just talk loud.
Turn it off, sorry.
Is it off? Here, this doesn't count at that time, right?
No.
I think this is dead.
Tony, let him
Is it-
start again.
It's dead.
Have to push it down.
Jennifer, we're just doing this, so you have to keep walking up.
There you go. I think it's working now.
Yeah.
Great, cool. All right, so we'll start over. So I agree with Jill. Probably one of the biggest problems confronting the board is the rising number of students, right? So we can only have there's a 2% cap on how much the budget can go up. We get pennies back for every dollar we pay in taxes to the state. So with very, very constrained resources, we have a district that's growing at incredible levels. Why? Because the district's good. People like the town for all the reasons we were talking about. So I think one of the biggest problems is how do you deal with these scarce resources with a growing district? One of the things I mentioned before, I think I have some creative ideas how we can try to get more money out of the state, not necessarily out of the taxpayers in the town, right? So I think that's probably one of the biggest things. And then longer term, and this is kind of from my own experience, my own background, how do you attract good teachers, period? How do we get the best teachers in the state to our district? Because that's what we're going to need for the future. So, long term, attracting teachers, Short term, how do we get more money in the district, because the district is growing like a weed.
Okay. Ms. Rubio Williams.
I'm going to have to echo some of the sentiments that have already been expressed here. And I think it's no surprise to anybody sitting out in the audience that one of the biggest challenges facing our district is, in fact, the increasing enrollment versus the state funding. And how we can get creative with our budget and finding solution to that, what has become a constant issue here in Chatham. And we see it, it's a cycle, right? We have a great school system which draws people to our area, and that's a wonderful thing. It's like we're a great, open, welcoming community. People are drawn because of our schools, which in turn results into overcrowdedness. I think the district has creatively addressed those issues, but how do we maintain that? How do we maintain a manageable class size while maintaining the level of academic excellence that our students, that we as a community have become accustomed to? Again, I think this is where my background will help.
Mr. Ryan.
I answered that, I was the first one to answer it.
Okay.
You did a great job.
I'm losing my place here. Okay, thank you. All right, yes, you did. Now, okay, now I'm, can't multitask here and read questions. Now, this goes to Ms. Weber. What do you think of the current bullying policy?
The state policy or the local?
The questioner didn't mention.
Well, then I'd have to clarify a little bit. So there's the state statute, the HIB, or harassment, intimidation, and bullying laws, which you are bound to uphold. Do we like them? No. Do we agree with them? No. They don't take into consideration an infraction by a second grader or an 18-year-old, but yet the statute is such that you have to impose certain restrictions. I think the school locally has a rock-solid policy in trying to handle bullying as best it can at an age-appropriate level while still staying within the guidelines that the state has outlined for us. So, do I think the local district is doing a great job? Yes. Do I think the state statute needs a tremendous amount of revision? Absolutely. It was written initially for the young man Tyler Clementi, who was in college, and yet the statute doesn't impact anybody in college. It only impacts, the K-12, where this young man had no previous incidents. So, I think that locally we're doing a great job. The state statute needs a tremendous amount of improvement. I don't know who goes to next.
That would be me.
Oh, sorry,
And
Mary.
on the other end, babe.
We're
Losing
not-
track.
That's okay.
Too many of us up here.
Bullying is just horrible, and it's unfortunate that our school district has to address it, and it's unfortunate that we are bound by the mandates of the state. I think that our bullying policy, I agree with Jill, is pretty good. I really think it's strongly written, and I think it helps to give the teachers and the principals who are trained in this to the power to judge and effectively and creatively come up with solutions for the incidents that occur. I trust that they will continue to do that, and that I would hope that Trenton would take a look at the state bullying policy, because I do think it needs change. And I think that unfortunately, all too often, state mandates do tie hands of school boards across the state. And I would work with the state and with the folks in town to make sure that we can accomplish that change. But really, I do believe that our bullying policy is pretty firm, and I agree with it.
Go ahead.
Okay, great. Bullying. So my wife Kate just arrived. She was over at the high school freshman night. She couldn't be here for the beginning because she was over there learning about my son Henry's class. Bullying. It's a topic we've talked about a lot at home. I've seen cases where folks have been treated unfairly because of bullying. You don't want anybody to get hurt because of bullying. I mean, clearly it's an issue. But sometimes you have to wonder if it's been treated fairly on all fronts. And no names here, but there's been cases where little kids have said things inadvertently, goes in the permanent file. Was that really bullying? I don't know. I don't think so. So, like everybody said, I mean, of course there's a state mandate, but I think everybody's got to kind of scratch their head and think about how we treat bullying there probably is a better way to do it. As Jill said, I mean, the board has to implement it the way the state wants us to, but I don't think it's a crystal clear issue, right? I mean, it can be handled a lot of different ways, so I'll leave it there.
Ms. Rubio Williams.
There's something that, Ron, you just said that I think defines the issue. It is not crystal clear. Bullying, I think we all agree, is wrong. There's just no room for it here in Chatham within our schools. Unfortunately, it exists. And how we address it, I think it has long-term implications. I am trying to raise kids at home that leave their door with the message, be kind, be tolerant, be accepting. I think our school is trying to do the same thing. I think there are times, however, when we are too quick to label, when the bullying tagline gets attached subjectively and inappropriately. And we all need to do a better job of, I don't know, we don't want to create this community where everybody is labeled as a bully. I myself am brought to tears just by stories of either whether it's kids on school buses or in the lunchroom. It's just unacceptable. And I think that as parents here, we all have a responsibility. It's not just the administration.
Mr. Ryan.
Yeah, the bullying issue is one of the most serious issues that we have to deal with in the district. I think the bullying policy does a decent job so far, but it could be better. You know, I would like to see, and this is related to actual bullying and not teasing, but I would like to see a policy based on data collection. We can easily identify. You can see it. You can see it. You see the kid sitting at the lunchroom by himself every day. You can identify at-risk situations and intervene and provide extracurricular social skills activities or things that enable greater interaction, you know, with teens and as Rosalinda said, teach kindness every single day.
All right.
Does Mary get next?
Yes.
One more thing, I would like to also mention one more thing. I think social media should be disabled on every kid's device when they enter the buildings.